Captain Park Hyun stood on the bridge of the Taeguk's edge, watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with calm focus. They had been traveling for 3 days to reach the emergency meeting at Nexus Prime. Every species in the galaxy was sending their best ships and leaders. Something terrible was coming. "Captain," called Lieutenant Commander Lee So-jin from her tactical station, "we're getting close to Nexus Prime. I can see the other fleets on long-range sensors." Park Hyun nodded. "Put it on screen." The view screen changed to show space around the massive space station called Nexus Prime. What they saw made several crew members gasp. Hundreds of alien ships filled the area around the station. There were crystal ships that looked like living gems, dark metal warships covered in spikes, and sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around them. Each fleet had dozens or hundreds of ships. "How many ships are out there?" asked Communications Officer Cho Min-ho. "Over 1,000, So-jin replied. "Maybe more. Every major species brought their entire battle fleets." Park Hyun looked at their own ship displayed on a small screen. The Taeguk's edge was impressive by human standards. It was 800 meters long, armed with the best weapons humans could build, and powered by an experimental reactor that pushed the limits of human technology. But compared to the alien fleets, it looked tiny. "Sir," said Chief Engineer Yoon Ji-woo over the comm system, "all systems are running perfectly. The new reactor is stable and all weapons are ready." "Good work, Ji-woo," Park Hyun replied. He had complete faith in his engineer. Yoon Ji-woo had designed half the systems on this ship herself. Dr. Shin Yuri walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was the ship's science officer and expert on alien life. Her face looked worried. "Captain, I've been reading the reports about these void harbingers. This is worse than anything we've faced before." "Tell me," Park Hyun said. 50,000 years ago something came from the center of the galaxy. The reports call them void harbingers. They weren't just trying to conquer worlds. They were consuming them. Entire star systems just disappeared. The first galactic collective had to unite every species in the galaxy to fight them. And they won, So-jin said. "Barely," Yuri replied. "They didn't destroy the harbingers. They just drove them back to the galactic core and trapped them there. Now something has woken them up again." The ship shook slightly as they docked with Nexus Prime. The space station was enormous, built by dozens of different species working together. It was designed to host meetings between all the galaxy's civilizations. "Captain," Cho Min-ho announced, "we're being directed to Docking Bay 847. Admiral Kim Dae-ho is already aboard the station." Park Hyun straightened his uniform. Admiral Kim Dae-ho was the highest-ranking human in the Galactic Collective. He was also Park Hyun's mentor and friend. "So-jin, you're with me. The rest of you, keep the ship ready. I have a feeling we won't be staying long." The walk through Nexus Prime was always impressive. The corridors were filled with beings from across the galaxy. Tall, thin aliens with blue skin walked next to short, furry creatures with 6 arms. Robot beings made of metal and crystal moved alongside living plants that somehow wore clothes. Every species in the collective was represented here. They found Admiral Kim Dae-ho in the human section of the station. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had been fighting in space longer than Park Hyun had been alive. "Hyun," the Admiral said. "Good to see you. How's the ship?" "Ready for whatever comes, sir," Park Hyun replied. "Good, because what's coming is going to test everything we've learned about war." Kim Dae-ho handed him a data pad. "Take a look at these sensor readings." The data pad showed images from the galactic core. Massive shapes moved in the darkness between stars. They looked like they were made of shadow and electricity. Some were as big as moons. Others stretched across entire solar systems. "How many?" So-jin asked. "We don't know," Kim Dae-ho said. "Thousands, maybe millions. They're moving toward inhabited space at incredible speed. They'll reach the outer colonies in 6 months." An announcement echoed through the station. "All fleet commanders and admirals report to the main assembly hall. Emergency session beginning now." The assembly hall was the largest room on Nexus Prime. It could hold representatives from every species in the collective. Park Hyun and So Jin found seats in the human section, which was much smaller than most of the others. Humans were still new to the galaxy. They had only been part of the collective for 50 years. The meeting began with Fleet Marshal Zarian of the Veltai taking the stage. The Veltai were crystal beings that lived for thousands of years. Zarian looked like a walking diamond that reflected rainbow light as it moved. Fellow beings of the collective, Zarian's voice rang out clearly. We face the return of our ancient enemy. The Void Harbingers have awakened and are moving toward our space. Every species must contribute their full military strength to stop them. One by one, species leaders stood to announce their contributions. The Crystal Veltai would send 500 bioships, each one grown rather than built. The Krone Empire offered 1,200 dreadnoughts covered in heavy armor and powerful weapons. The Miraleth, beings who could control minds, promised 800 ships guided by their psychic powers. Each announcement was met with approval from the assembly. The numbers were impressive. Soon, there would be a fleet of over 50,000 ships ready to fight. Now, Zarian announced, we call upon our newest members, Admiral Kim Dae-ho of Earth. Kim Dae-ho stood slowly and walked to the center of the hall. Every eye in the massive room focused on him. The silence was complete. Honorable beings of the collective, Kim Dae-ho began. Humanity understands the threat we face. We know the Void Harbingers nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy before. We will not let that happen again. He paused, looking around the room. Humanity offers the Teguk's edge. One ship, one crew. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the whispers began. Park Hyun could hear alien voices expressing confusion and disappointment. Some sounded angry. Zarian's crystal form flickered with what might have been surprise. Admiral Kim, perhaps you misunderstand the scale of this threat. We are assembling the largest fleet in galactic history. Surely Earth can contribute more than a single vessel. Kim Dae-ho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Marshal Zarian, with respect, I believe you misunderstand humanity. We have never needed large fleets to end our enemies. A Krone general stood up, his metal body clanking as he moved. One ship cannot make a difference against thousands of harbingers. One human ship, Kim Dae-ho corrected. That makes all the difference. More voices joined in. A Miraleth leader spoke with a voice like singing bells. Perhaps the humans are offering to scout for the main fleet. No, Kim Dae-ho said firmly. We are offering to do what humans have always done. We will adapt, we will fight, and we will win. We do not need 1,000 ships because we have never fought wars by counting numbers. Park Hyun felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that tone in the Admiral's voice. It was the same tone human commanders had used before every impossible victory in human history. A Veltai counselor spoke up. Admiral Kim, your species has been in space for less than 400 years. You have never faced anything like the Void Harbingers. You're right, Kim Dae-ho agreed. We have never faced the Void Harbingers. But the Void Harbingers have never faced humans either. I believe they will find the experience educational. Zarian's crystal body pulsed with different colors. Very well. Humanity's contribution is noted. One ship. The dismissal in the crystal being's voice was clear. Kim Dae-ho bowed slightly. One ship, he agreed. It will be enough. As the Admiral walked back to his seat, Park Hyun saw something in the alien faces around them. It wasn't just disappointment, it was pity. They thought humans were either foolish or cowardly. They thought one ship meant humanity wasn't taking the threat seriously. They were wrong. After the meeting, Park Hyun and So Jin walked with Admiral Kim Dae-ho back toward the docking bays. Sir, So Jin said carefully, the other species seemed to think we were making a mistake. They did, Kim Dae-ho agreed. They think warfare is about building the biggest fleet and having the most powerful weapons. They've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. And humans fight differently? Park Hyun asked. Humans fight to win, Kim Dae-ho said simply. We don't care about honor or tradition or showing off our strength. We care about ending threats permanently. The collective drove the Harbingers away 50,000 years ago. We're going to make sure they never come back. They reached the docking bay where the Teguk's Edge waited. The ship looked small compared to some of the alien vessels, but Park Hyun felt pride when he looked at it. Every piece of technology on that ship had been built by humans who refused to accept that anything was impossible. Hyun, Admiral Kim Dae-ho said, "I'm not going with you." "Sir? I'll be coordinating with the collective fleet. But you and your crew have the real mission. While they're thinking about big battles and defensive lines, you're going to do what humans do best, which is," Kim Dae-ho smiled again, "you're going to learn everything about these Harbingers. You're going to find their weaknesses, and then you're going to teach T." The Kepler defense line stretched across 3 star systems. Massive space stations floated between the planets, connected by energy fields and weapon platforms. It was the strongest defensive position the Galactic Collective had ever built. Captain Park Hyun watched from the bridge of the Teguk's Edge as the combined fleet took their positions. 53,000 ships, reported Lieutenant Commander Lee So-jin from her tactical station. Every major species in the galaxy is here. The alien fleet spread out across the defense line in perfect formation. The crystal ships of the Veltai glowed with inner light. The dark metal Kron dreadnoughts bristled with weapons. The Miraleth vessels seemed to shimmer as their psychic crews prepared for battle. "Where are we positioned?" asked Park Hyun. "Sector 7, near the edge of the formation," So-jin replied. "The fleet commanders put us with the scout ships and support vessels." Communications Officer Cho Min-ho looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up chatter on the alien command frequencies. They're calling us the human observers." Dr. Shin Yuri, working at her science station, made a disgusted sound. "They think we're here to watch and learn, not to fight." "Good," Park Hyun said. "Let them think that. It will give us more freedom to do what we need to do." Chief Engineer Yoon Ji-woo's voice came over the comm system from the engine room. "Captain, all systems are running perfectly. The experimental reactor is stable and I've got power ready for whatever we need." "Weapon status?" Park Hyun asked. "All plasma cannons charged and ready," So-jin reported. "Missile tubes loaded. Energy shields at maximum power." Park Hyun nodded. The Teguk's Edge might be small compared to the alien warships, but it packed more firepower than most ships 3 times its size. Human engineers had never believed in wasting space on comfort when you could fill it with weapons instead. "Sir," Yuri called out, "long-range sensors are picking up something at the edge of the system." The main view screen changed to show the outer edge of the Kepler system. At first, there was nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then the darkness began to move. The Void Harbingers came out of hyperspace like a nightmare becoming real. They were nothing like the ships of the collective species. Instead of metal and crystal, they seemed to be made of pure darkness and crackling energy. Some were small, about the size of human frigates. Others were massive, stretching for kilometers, like living shadows. "How many?" So-jin asked, her voice tight. Yuri worked frantically at her sensors. "I'm reading at least 5,000 contacts, maybe more. They're hard to track because they seem to absorb sensor energy." The largest Harbinger ship was the size of a small moon. Lightning danced across its surface and space itself seemed to bend around it. Smaller Harbinger vessels moved around it like fish swimming through dark water. "Fleet Command is ordering all ships to battle stations," Cho Min-ho announced. The Harbingers are moving toward the defense line. Park Hyun watched as the collective fleet prepared for battle. Energy shields came online across thousands of ships. Weapon systems charged to full power. The space around the defense line glowed with the energy of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever assembled. "This should be a slaughter," So-jin muttered. "We outnumber them 10 to 1. But Dr. Shin Yuri was studying her sensor readings with growing alarm. "Captain, I'm detecting something strange about the Harbinger energy signatures. They're not just ships, they're something else." "What do you mean?" "I mean they're alive. Those aren't metal hulls with crews inside. Each Harbinger ship is a single, living entity made of some kind of energy-matter hybrid. The first shots of the battle came from the collective fleet. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward the approaching harbingers. The attack was coordinated perfectly, with each species contributing their most powerful weapons. The energy beams struck the harbinger ships and simply disappeared. The missiles exploded harmlessly against their dark hulls. Not a single harbinger was damaged. Impossible, breathed Sojin. Nothing can absorb that much firepower. The harbinger's response was unlike anything in the records of galactic warfare. Instead of returning fire with weapons, they simply moved closer to the collective ships. When they got within a few kilometers, something terrible happened. The first ship to die was a Veltai bioship. One moment it was firing its crystal weapons at the nearest harbinger. The next moment it went dark. All power disappeared. All life signs vanished. The beautiful crystal ship became a dead husk floating in space. What happened to it? Park Hyun demanded. Yuri's hands flew over her instruments. The harbinger. It drained the ship somehow, not just the power systems. The crew is dead. All biological and artificial life on that ship is gone. More ships began to die. Kron dreadnoughts went silent as their mechanical crews simply stopped functioning. Miraleth vessels lost all psychic activity as their crews' minds were somehow extinguished. Ship after ship became a floating tomb. Fleet Command is ordering a retreat to the second defense line, Cho Minho reported, his voice shaking. All ships are pulling back, Sojin added. Except... She paused, checking her tactical display. Most of the collective fleet was retreating in organized formation, trying to maintain some kind of order as they fell back. But several dozen ships were not moving. They had been caught by the harbinger's life-draining effect and were now dead. In space, Captain, Yuri said urgently. I need to get closer to study this effect. If we can understand how they're draining life energy, maybe we can find a way to stop it. Park Hyun looked at the retreating fleet, then at the advancing harbingers. A normal captain would retreat with the rest of the fleet. A smart captain would preserve his ship and crew for the next battle. Park Hyun had never been accused of being normal or smart. Cho Minho, Signal Fleet Command. Tell them humanity is engaging. Sir? Cho Minho looked shocked. You heard me. We're not retreating. Set course for the Harbinger formation. Sojin stared at him. Captain, we'll be the only ship moving toward them. The entire alien fleet is running away. Exactly, Park Hyun said, which means we'll have a clear field to study them without 50,000 other ships getting in our way. The Taeguk's edge turned away from the retreating collective fleet and accelerated toward the advancing harbingers. On the main view screen, the dark ships grew larger and more terrifying as they approached. All crew, this is the captain, Park Hyun announced over the ship's comm system. We are engaging the enemy to gather intelligence. All departments report status. Engineering ready, came Yoon Ji-woo's voice. Reactor at full power. Medical. Standing by, reported Dr. Han Bo-ra from the ship's hospital. Marines ready for anything, announced Master Sergeant Kim Tae-hyun. As they closed with the Harbinger formation, Yuri worked frantically at her science station. I'm getting detailed readings now. The life drain effect seems to work by targeting specific bioelectric patterns. It's like they're tuned to recognize the neural patterns of known galactic species. Distance to nearest Harbinger? Park Hyun asked. 50 kilometers and closing, Sojin replied. Captain, at this range, they should be able to drain our life energy just like they did to the other ships. Maybe, Park Hyun said. Or maybe they've never encountered human bioelectric patterns before. They flew deeper into the Harbinger formation. The dark ships moved around them like predators circling prey. The largest Harbinger, the moon-sized entity, seemed to notice their approach. Lightning flickered more brightly across its surface. 30 kilometers, Sojin reported. 20. 10. They were now closer to the Harbingers than any collective ship had managed to get without dying. The crew held their breath, waiting for their life energy to be drained away. Nothing happened. We're still alive, Yuri said with amazement. The life drain effect isn't working on us. Why not? Sojin asked. Human neural patterns must be different enough from the other galactic species that the Harbingers can't lock onto them, Yuri explained. They've been asleep for 50,000 years. They know how to drain Veltai and Kron and Miraleth life energy, but they've never encountered humans before. A smaller Harbinger, about the size of a cruiser, moved directly toward them. Its dark hull pulsed with energy as it tried to drain the Teguk's edge. Still nothing, Yuri reported. Wait, I'm detecting feedback in the Harbinger's energy matrix. It's trying to drain us, but our neural patterns are creating some kind of interference. The Harbinger ship suddenly convulsed. Lightning arced wildly across its surface. Then it simply stopped moving and began to drift. Did we kill it? So Jin asked. I think so, Yuri said, checking her readings. The feedback from trying to drain human life energy overloaded its system somehow. Park Hyun smiled grimly. Interesting. Target the next closest Harbinger. Let's see if this works more than once. The Teguk's edge moved toward another Harbinger vessel. This one was larger, shaped like a twisted spiral of dark energy. As they approached, it attempted to drain their life force. Again, the feedback effect occurred. The Harbinger's energy matrix destabilized and the creature died. Captain, Yuri said excitedly, I think I understand what's happening. The Harbingers have spent 50,000 years learning to drain the life energy of every known galactic species. But humans are new. Our bioelectric patterns are completely alien to them. The emergency war council aboard the collective flagship was chaos. Fleet Marshal Zerion's crystal body flickered with stressed light patterns as reports poured in from across the galaxy. The Harbingers had broken through the second defense line and were now moving toward the core worlds. Captain Park Hyun stood at the back of the massive meeting room, watching alien leaders argue in a dozen different languages. The Crown generals wanted to make a final stand at their homeworld. The Miraleth Council suggested evacuating all populations to the far rim of the galaxy. The Veltai proposed trying to negotiate with the Harbingers. Order! Zerion called out, the crystal being's voice cutting through the noise. We must have coordinated action or all is lost. General Prime Corax of the Kron Empire slammed his metal fist on the table. Coordination failed at Kepler. Coordination failed at the Helix Nebula. The Harbingers cannot be stopped by conventional warfare. Then what do you suggest? Asked Hierarch Lirelai of the Miraleth. Her telepathic voice echoed in everyone's mind. We have lost 12,000 ships in 3 days. Our fleets are being destroyed faster than we can replace them. Park Hyun had heard enough. He stepped forward into the center of the room. If I may speak. The argument stopped. Every alien eye turned to look at the human captain. Most of the expressions were not friendly. Humanity had contributed only one ship to the defense, and many species blamed humans for not taking the threat seriously. Captain Park, Zerion said coldly. I believe your ship was supposed to be observing, not participating in battle. We observed, Park Hyun replied calmly. We also learned things the rest of the fleet did not. He activated a holographic projector, showing the battle data from the Teguk's edge. The display showed Harbinger ships being destroyed not by weapons, but by some kind of energy feedback. Impossible, muttered a Veltai counselor. Harbingers cannot be killed by energy feedback. They can if the feedback comes from trying to drain human life energy, Park Hyun explained. The Harbingers have been asleep for 50,000 years. They know how to drain the bioelectric patterns of every species in the collective, but they have never encountered humans before. Dr. Shin Yuri stepped forward carrying a data pad. Our analysis shows that human neural patterns are completely different from other galactic species. When a Harbinger tries to drain human life force, it creates a feedback loop that overloads their systems. You're saying humans are immune to their primary weapon? Hierarch Lirelai asked. Not just immune, Yuri replied. We're toxic to them. Our bioelectric patterns are like poison to their energy matrix. General Prime Corax leaned forward. How many Harbingers did your single ship destroy? 43 confirmed kills, Park Hyun answered. 0 human casualties from life drain. The room erupted in whispers and clicks and electronic sounds as the various species discussed this information. Park Hyun could see hope beginning to appear in some of their faces. This is excellent news, Zarion said. If humans are immune to Harbinger life drain, then human ships can engage them safely while our fleets provide support. With respect, Marshal, Park Hyun said, you're missing the point. Explain. The problem isn't that your ships can't fight Harbingers. The problem is that the Harbingers will adapt. They're already learning to avoid trying to drain human life energy. Give them a few more encounters, and they'll figure out how to kill humans, just like they kill everyone else. The hope in the room began to fade. If humanity's advantage was only temporary, then they were back where they started. However, Park Hyun continued, we believe there is a solution. He nodded to Yuri, who activated another holographic display. This one showed detailed scans of human neural patterns compared to other species. The key is bioelectric frequency, Yuri explained. Every species has a unique neural signature. The Harbingers have learned to recognize and drain all known signatures. But if we could modify the bioelectric patterns of other species to match human frequencies, you're talking about changing our fundamental neural structure, Hierarch, Lirelai said. That's impossible, and even if it weren't, it would be incredibly dangerous. Yes, Park Hyun agreed. It would be dangerous. It might even be fatal. But it's the only way to make your crews immune to Harbinger life drain. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Han Bo-Ra stepped forward. We've run preliminary tests on volunteer human crew members. By using controlled electromagnetic fields, we can temporarily alter human bioelectric patterns. The process is painful and risky, but it works. Temporarily? Asked the Veltai counselor. The effects last for about 72 hours before the neural system returns to normal, Dr. Han Bo-Ra explained. But during that time, the modified patterns create an even stronger feedback effect when Harbingers try to drain them. General Prime Korax studied the data. You're saying this modification would not only protect our crews, but actually make them more deadly to Harbingers? Exactly, Park Hyun said. But there's more. The process has to be done while in combat. The electromagnetic fields required can only be generated by our ship's experimental reactor, and only while the reactor is under battle stress. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The alien leaders were beginning to understand what Park Hyun was really proposing. You want us to send our crews to your ship, Zarion said slowly, to undergo an experimental and dangerous procedure. In the middle of a battle, I want you to let us save the galaxy, Park Hyun replied simply. Lieutenant Commander Lee So-jin had been quiet during the meeting, but now she spoke up. Marshal Zarion, we need volunteer crews from different species. We'll modify their neural patterns and then send them back to their ships. Those ships can then engage Harbingers without fear of life drain. And if the procedure kills them? Asked Hierarch Lirelai. Then they die fighting instead of having their life force stolen, So-jin answered. At least they'll have a chance. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species refused to risk their crews on an untested human procedure. Others were desperate enough to try anything. In the end, they reached a compromise. Each major species would send a small volunteer crew to the Teguk's edge for modification. If the procedure worked, more volunteers would follow. If it failed, they would try to evacuate the core worlds and make a last stand at the galactic rim. Park Hyun returned to his ship with a mix of hope and dread. They had convinced the collective to try humanity's solution, but now they had to make it work. The lives of billions depended on an experimental procedure that might kill anyone who attempted it. Captain, Chief Engineer Yoon Ji-woo called over the comm as he entered the bridge. I've been working on modifications to the medical bay. If we're going to be altering alien neural patterns, I need to upgrade the electromagnetic field generators. How long? Park Hyun asked. 12 hours for basic modifications, 24 for full optimization. You have 6 hours, Park Hyun told her. The Harbingers will reach the Centauri colonies in 18 hours. We need to be ready. The first volunteer arrived 3 hours later. Commander Vex of the Krone Empire was a massive mechanical being covered in armor plating. His optical sensors glowed red as he studied the humans working around him. I do not fear death, Vex announced in his electronic voice. I have served the Empire for 300 years, If I can serve it in death as well, so be it. Dr. Han. Bora ran him through the medical scanners. His neural matrix is completely artificial. This might actually be easier than organic modification. The second volunteer was Seer Lyrale, a young Miraleth with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. Her telepathic abilities made her valuable to her people, but also made the procedure more dangerous. I can feel your doubt, she said to Dr. Han Bora. You're not sure this will work on telepathic minds. I'm not sure it will work on anyone, Dr. Han Bora admitted. But we have to try. The third volunteer surprised everyone. Researcher Quell was a Veltai, but unlike the other crystal beings, her body was smaller and more delicate. She was a scientist, not a warrior. Why did you volunteer? Park Hyun asked her. Because someone needs to document the process from the subject's perspective, Quell replied, her crystal voice ringing like wind chimes. If this works, other Veltai will need to know what to expect. The modifications to the medical bay were completed just as the Harbinger scouts reached the outer edge of the Centauri system. Yoon Ji-woo had managed to install electromagnetic field generators throughout the medical bay and connect them directly to the ship's experimental reactor. All systems ready, she reported. But Captain, I need to warn you. Running the reactor at combat levels while generating these electromagnetic fields will put incredible stress on our power systems. Will it hold? Park Hyun asked. Probably, Yoon Ji-woo said. Maybe. Ask me again in 12 hours. The first test subject was Commander Vex. The massive Kron warrior lay on the medical table while Dr. Han Bo-Ra activated the electromagnetic field generators. Energy crackled through the air around him as the fields began to alter his artificial neural matrix. Vex's optical sensors flickered and went dark. Warning alarms sounded as his vital signs flatlined. He's dying, Dr. Han Bo-Ra said, her hands flying over the medical controls. No, Yuri corrected, studying her readings. His consciousness is still active. The electromagnetic fields are just interfering with. 2 weeks after the first successful neural modifications, the Teguk's Edge had become something unprecedented in galactic history. The human ship now carried over 300 volunteer crew members from a dozen different species, all of whom had undergone the dangerous bioelectric pattern alteration. More importantly, Captain Park Hyun had discovered that their modified crews were not just immune to Harbinger life drain. They had become hunters. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Lee So-jin called from her tactical station. Long-range sensors are picking up a Harbinger patrol group bearing 27 Mark IV, 12 ships including 2 heavy cruisers. Park Hyun studied the tactical display. While the main collective fleet continued to fall back and establish defensive lines, the Teguk's Edge had been conducting what military historians would later call the most audacious campaign in galactic warfare. For 2 weeks, they had been hunting Harbinger formations deep in enemy territory. Distance? He asked. 4 light hours, So-jin replied. They're moving toward the Rigel colony system. Dr. Shin Yuri looked up from her science station. Captain, if they reach Rigel, over. 2 million civilians will die. Not if we reach them first, Park Hyun said. Navigation, set intercept course, maximum speed. The hunt that followed was typical of the new warfare the humans had pioneered. Instead of engaging in massive fleet battles, the Teguk's Edge would appear without warning, destroy its targets, and vanish before Harbinger reinforcements could arrive. They had become the galaxy's worst nightmare for the ancient enemy. In the ship's modified cargo bay, Commander Vex of the Kron Empire worked alongside Seer Lyrale of the Miraleth and dozens of other volunteers. The neural modifications had done more than make them immune to life drain. They had created something new, hybrid crews that combined the best abilities of multiple species with human tactical thinking. Harbinger patrol detected, Vex announced, his mechanical voice carrying to every station. Since his modification, the Kron warrior's tactical systems had improved beyond anything his people thought possible. I can sense their thoughts, Seer Lyrale added. They are confused, afraid. They do not understand why their primary weapon fails against us. Chief Engineer Yoon Ji-woo's voice came over the comm from deep within the ship. All systems ready? Captain. Fair warning, though. We're running the reactor at 140% of safe parameters. I can't guarantee how much longer we can maintain this. How long until reactor failure? Park Hyun asked. At current power levels? Maybe 6 hours, maybe 6 minutes. The experimental systems were never designed for this kind of sustained operation. Park Hyun nodded grimly. The Teguk's edge was slowly destroying itself with each battle. The electromagnetic fields needed to maintain the neural modifications required enormous amounts of power. The ship's experimental reactor was being pushed far beyond its design limits. Contact in 10 minutes, Sojin reported. Park Hyun opened a ship-wide channel. All crew, this is the captain. We are about to engage 12 Harbinger vessels. As always, our mission is simple. Destroy them all before they can harm innocent civilians. The response came from hundreds of voices speaking in dozens of languages. Humans, Krone, Miraleth, Veltai, and others. They had become something new. A crew united not by species, but by purpose. Captain, called Dr. Hanbo Ra from the medical bay. All modified crew members are reporting stable neural patterns. The enhancement effects are actually getting stronger with each battle. This was an unexpected development. The neural modifications were supposed to be temporary, lasting only 72 hours. But repeated exposure to Harbinger life drain attempts was somehow making the modified patterns permanent and more powerful. Harbingers are changing course to intercept us, Sojin announced. They know we're here. Park Hyun smiled coldly. In the old days, this would have been bad news. Now it was exactly what they wanted. The Harbingers had learned to recognize human ships and were actively hunting them. This made them predictable, and predictable enemies were dead enemies. All weapons to full power, he ordered. Prepare for combat. The battle began the moment the two forces came within range. The Harbingers opened fire with their dark energy weapons, beams of pure entropy that could eat through any known shield system. The Teguk's edge responded with concentrated plasma fire and missile barrages. But this was not the kind of battle the galaxy had seen before. Instead of trying to destroy the Harbingers with superior firepower, the human ship used tactics that would have seemed insane to conventional military thinking. Ramming speed, Park Hyun ordered. Take us directly toward the largest Harbinger. Sir? Sojin looked shocked. You heard me. The closer we get, the more likely they are to try life drain attacks, and we want them to try. The Teguk's edge accelerated directly toward the enemy formation. The Harbingers, recognizing the human ship that had been destroying their patrols for weeks, focused all their fire on it. Dark energy beams tore through the ship's hull, but the vessel kept coming. When they reached close range, the largest Harbinger attempted what had killed thousands of collective ships. It tried to drain the life force of everyone aboard the Teguk's edge. The feedback was catastrophic, not just for the attacking Harbinger, but for every other Harbinger in the patrol group. The neural modifications had grown stronger over time, and the feedback effect now spread from ship to ship through some kind of psychic resonance. All 12 Harbingers are down, Sojin reported with amazement. One life drain attempt killed the entire patrol group. Dr. Shin Yuri was studying her sensor readings with growing excitement. Captain, I think I understand what's happening. The neural modifications aren't just making us immune to life drain. They're turning us into a psychic weapon against the Harbingers. Explain. Every time a Harbinger tries to drain us, the feedback doesn't just kill that individual creature. It spreads through their collective consciousness like a virus. We're not just hunting their ships. We're infecting their entire species with our modified neural patterns. Park Hyun considered this. If Yuri was right, then every battle they fought was not just a tactical victory, but a strategic blow against the Harbinger's ability to use their primary weapon against anyone. Signal from Fleet Command, Communications Officer Cho Min-ho announced. Admiral Kim Dae-ho wants a status report. Put him through. Admiral Kim Dae-ho appeared on the main view screen. Behind him, Park Hyun could see the bridge of the Collective flagship, where alien leaders were studying tactical displays. Hyun, the Admiral said, I need to know your current operational status. The Collective leadership is asking questions. What kind of questions? The kind that wonder whether humanity has gone insane, Kim Dae-ho replied bluntly. You've been operating alone in Harbinger territory for 2 weeks. You've destroyed over 300 enemy vessels. And according to reports, your ship should have been destroyed 5 times over. Park Hyun looked around his bridge. Hull patches covered blast holes. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The air smelled of burnt electronics and overheated metal. Half his crew was wounded, and everyone was exhausted. We're still operational, he said simply. For how long? Chief Engineer Yoon Ji-woo's voice answered from the comm system. Admiral, this is Yoon Ji-woo. Honestly, I don't know how we're still flying. The reactor should have exploded days ago. The hull should have collapsed from structural stress. By every law of physics and engineering, this ship should be a cloud of radioactive debris. But you're not, Kim Dae-ho observed. No, sir, we're not, and we're getting stronger. This was the truth that none of them wanted to admit. The neural modifications were changing more than just their bioelectric patterns. The extended exposure to Harbinger technology and the constant stress of battle were transforming the crew into something new. Commander Vex no longer looked like a standard Kron warrior. His armor had fused with salvaged Harbinger technology, making him faster and stronger than any mechanical being in galactic history. Seer Lyra Ly's telepathic abilities had grown to the point where she could sense Harbinger thoughts across star systems. Even the human crew members were changing, developing enhanced reflexes and an almost supernatural ability to predict enemy movements. Admiral, Park Hyun said, request permission to continue independent operations. Define independent operations. We're going after the Harbinger command ship. The silence that followed was deafening. Even on the crowded bridge of the flagship, every conversation stopped. Hyun, Kim Dae-ho said carefully. The Harbinger command ship is the size of a small moon. It's surrounded by thousands of escort vessels. Our best intelligence suggests it's located near the galactic core, in the most heavily defended region of Harbinger space. Yes, sir. You want to attack it with one ship and a crew of barely 400. Yes, sir. Kim Dae-ho was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Park Hyun could hear alien voices arguing in multiple languages. Clearly, the collective leadership was not enthusiastic about this plan. The collective council thinks you've lost your mind, Kim Dae-ho said finally. What do you think? Admiral Kim Dae-ho smiled. I think the Harbingers are about to learn why humanity has never lost a war we were determined to win. Permission granted, Captain. Go teach them about human warfare. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Taeguk's edge. The galactic core was a nightmare of twisted space and dark energy. Reality itself bent and warped around the massive black hole at the center of the galaxy. It was here, in this hellish region where physics barely functioned, that the Void Harbingers had built their ultimate stronghold. Captain Park Hyun stood on the bridge of the Taeguk's edge, watching the impossible sight before them. The Harbinger command ship floated in the twisted space near the black hole's event horizon. It was not a ship in any conventional sense. It was a living moon, a creature of pure dark energy that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. Size estimate? He asked Lieutenant Commander Lee So-jin. Approximately 1,200 kilometers in diameter, she replied. It's larger than Earth's moon. Around the command ship, thousands of smaller Harbinger vessels moved in complex patterns. Some were the size of battleships. Others stretched for hundreds of kilometers. All of them radiated the dark energy that could drain the life from entire star systems. Total enemy count? Park Hyun asked. Over 4,000 vessels, So-jin reported. Including the command ship, we're looking at the largest concentration of Harbinger forces in the galaxy. Dr. Shin Yuri looked up from her science station. Captain, I'm detecting something unusual about the command ship's energy patterns. It's not just controlling the other Harbingers. It's connected to them on a quantum level. Explain. The command ship appears to be the central nervous system for the entire Harbinger species. Destroy it and every Harbinger in the galaxy dies instantly. Chief Engineer Yoon Ji-woo's voice came over the comm from deep in the ship's engine room. Captain, I need to be honest with you. Our reactor is running on borrowed time. The modifications we've made, the constant battle stress, the effects of traveling through twisted space. We're holding together through sheer determination and nothing else. How long do we have? For normal operations? Maybe an hour. For combat operations against 4,000 harbingers? I honestly don't know. Park Hyun looked around his bridge. The crew that surrounded him was no longer entirely human. 3 months of neural modifications and constant battle had transformed them into something new. Their reflexes were superhuman. Their tactical awareness bordered on telepathy. They had become perfectly adapted for war against the harbingers, but they were still recognizably themselves. Commander Vex still fought with Kron honor. Seer Lyrelai still carried Miraleth compassion. The human crew members still displayed the stubborn determination that had carried their species through every impossible challenge. Communications, Park Hyun ordered. Open a channel to Fleet Command. Admiral Kim Dae-ho appeared on the main view screen. Behind him, the emergency council chamber was filled with leaders from every species in the collective. They all looked desperate. Hyun, the admiral said, please tell me you have good news. We've found the Harbinger command ship, Park Hyun reported. Destroying it will end the war. And the bad news? It's defended by 4,000 Harbinger vessels, and our ship is falling apart. The alien leaders in the background began talking, urgently among themselves. Park Hyun could hear fragments of conversation in multiple languages. Words like impossible and suicide were mentioned frequently. Captain, Fleet Marshal Zerion's crystal voice rang out. Even if you could somehow destroy the command ship, you would never survive the approach. There must be another way. There is no other way, Park Hyun replied. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy. We find the impossible solution and make it work. At what cost? Asked Hierarch Lyrelai of the Miraleth. Your crew? Your ship? Your lives? Park Hyun looked around, his bridge one more time, at Lieutenant Commander So Jin, who had become the finest tactical officer in galactic history, at Dr. Yuri, whose scientific brilliance had unlocked the secrets of Harbinger biology, at the dozens of alien volunteers who had become more human than their original species. Sometimes, he said quietly, saving the galaxy requires becoming something the galaxy needs rather than something it wants. He closed the communication channel and turned to address his crew. All hands, this is the captain. In approximately 1 hour, we will engage the largest enemy force in galactic history. Our mission is simple. Reach the command ship and destroy it. Our chances of survival are effectively 0. He paused, looking at each member of his transformed crew. I want everyone to understand something. We came here as representatives of humanity. We will finish this as something humanity can be proud of. We are no longer entirely human, but we are still entirely determined to protect innocent life. Dar. Response came from hundreds of voices in dozens of languages. Understood, Captain. Engineering, give me everything the reactor has left. Tactical, prepare all weapons. Navigation, plot a direct course to the command ship. Sir. Navigation. Officer Park Sun-woo said, a direct course will take us through the densest part of the Harbinger formation. Good, Park Hyun replied. The more of them that try to drain our life energy, the stronger the feedback effect becomes. What followed was the most audacious military maneuver in galactic history. The Taeguk's edge accelerated directly toward the center of the Harbinger formation, making no attempt to avoid enemy contact. Instead, they actively sought it. The first Harbinger squadron they encountered attempted to drain their life force. The feedback effect was so powerful that it destroyed not just the attacking ships but every Harbinger within a light-second radius. The neural modifications had grown so strong that they were now weapons of mass destruction against the ancient enemy. Harbinger casualties mounting exponentially, Sojin reported. Every attempt at life drain is killing dozens of their ships. But the Harbingers were learning. The newer formations stopped trying to drain the human ship and instead focused on conventional weapons fire. Dark energy beams tore through the Taeguk's Edge's hull, causing massive damage. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, Yoon Ji-woo reported. We're losing atmosphere fast, casualties mounting. added Dr. Han Bora from the medical bay. Over 100 crew members down. The ship shuddered as another barrage of dark energy weapons struck home. Warning alarms sounded throughout the vessel as critical systems began to fail. "Captain," Commander Vex called from his tactical station, "I am detecting a pattern in the Harbinger attacks. They are trying to disable our engines rather than destroy us outright." "Why?" Park Hyun asked. Dr. Yuri provided the answer. "They want to capture us. Our neural modifications represent something they've never encountered. They want to study us, learn from us." "That's not going to happen," Park Hyun said grimly. "Yoon Ji-woo, prepare to overload the reactor." "Sir, if we can't reach the command ship, we'll take as many Harbingers with us as possible." But Seer Lyrale suddenly spoke up from her station. "Captain, I'm sensing something from the command ship. It's afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of us. Of what we've become. The command ship is the central intelligence for the entire Harbinger species. It can sense our modified neural patterns and it recognizes them as a threat to every Harbinger in existence." This gave Park Hyun an idea. "Yuri, is it possible to amplify our neural modification effects?" "Theoretically, yes. If we could channel the ship's entire power output through the electromagnetic field generators, do it. Captain, that will drain all power from engines, weapons, and life support. We'll be completely defenseless. We won't need defenses if this works." The next few minutes were controlled chaos as the crew rerouted the ship's entire power output to the neural modification systems. The Teguk's edge went dark except for the medical bay, where electromagnetic fields powerful enough to reshape reality itself began to build. "All crew to the medical bay," Park Hyun ordered. "Everyone needs to be in the field effect for this to work." 400 beings from a dozen different species crowded into the ship's medical bay. As the electromagnetic fields activated, their neural patterns began to resonate in perfect harmony. What had started as individual modifications became a collective consciousness focused on one purpose: the destruction of the Harbinger species. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the enemy. Every Harbinger within 10 light years began to die as the amplified neural patterns spread through their collective consciousness like a plague. Ships that had been moving to attack the human vessel suddenly went dark and began to drift. "It's working," Yuri reported. "The neural pattern spread is accelerating exponentially. The command ship is trying to cut its connections to the other Harbingers, but it's too late." On the view screen, they watched as the massive command ship began to convulse. Lightning arced across its surface as its consciousness was invaded by human determination and alien courage. The creature that had been the master of the Harbinger species was dying, killed by the collective will of beings it had never imagined could exist. "All Harbinger vessels in the system are going dark," So-Jin reported. "The neural pattern is spreading faster than light through their quantum connections." Master Sergeant Kim Tae-hyun was monitoring galactic communications. "Captain, I'm picking up reports from across the galaxy. Harbinger fleets everywhere are just stopping. They're dying by the thousands." The command ship gave one final convulsion and went completely dark. The creature that had controlled an entire species was dead, killed by the collective consciousness.